Welcome to the Art of Feminine Negotiation. I'm so glad you decided to spend your valuable time to join us today, and it is going to be worth it. Today, we're going to be talking with Beth Dessen Duffy about how to negotiate with kindness, and goodness knows the world can use more of that. So welcome, Beth. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And for those of you who don't know Beth, she graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Education from Cornell University. But what really intrigued me, and the reason I had to have her here to chat to you today, is that Beth is the president of the Christmas Tree of Kindness project, and she is sharing their family Christmas tradition in a storybook, in app activity, and printable crafts to help individuals, families, and groups practice kindness so that we can create joy and have a better world. And as someone who sponsored the Art of Feminine Negotiation to try and get people to show up as better versions of themselves, this really resonated with me. So Beth, kickstart us off. Tell us what is the Christmas Tree of Kindness?
So the Christmas Tree of Kindness, it started out as our family tradition. We would cut out a construction paper tree and put it on our kitchen cabinet and add an ornament after one of us did a kind act. And the goal was to encourage giving as well as receiving during the Christmas season. But we soon learned that, it was a wonderful way for us to focus on and talk about and practice kindness together. So it's, when our children were little, it's a very busy family, like most. And I want to say that we weren't perfect. In most years, I didn't want to yell because it seemed like it was exactly the opposite of what we were supposed to be doing. But I might have raised my voice in enthusiasm to say, you know what, we need more ornaments on our tree. Let's get working. We always seem to make it. And we received a lot of positive feedback over the years. And about 16 years went by, and my husband and I decided that we either do something with it or we stop talking about it. So I'd like to say that we're reluctant entrepreneurs, but as a result, the good news is everyone can enjoy the activity in a virtual form via the app. You can download it from the Apple Store. And Cindy, you and I could connect on the same tree and add ornaments together.
That's
and at
very
the
cool.
end, we could get a star for the top of the tree and Christmas music.
Yeah.
But then if people don't really like apps, there's also a printable version from the website that you can print a blank tree with ornaments. So you can do the same activity on a kitchen cabinet or in a classroom. And then finally, to enhance the activity, we came up with a new storybook, and the heroes are a young evergreen tree named Spruce and a puppy named Holly. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the book. And it's funny because some people like the book the best, some people like the app, and some people like the craft, but we like to think that people can pick and choose and just, enjoy what works best for them and their families.
I think this is just such a beautiful idea. And like most great ideas, I mean, it's so simple at its core. So when you guys started to doing it at home, like what was the original inspiration for this for you guys?
We just thought that the focus was so much on receiving of gifts, which, I can remember that as a child too. But we also had heavy input when we were growing up of the giving aspect.
Yeah.
But somehow I felt like we needed more, and my husband felt too, what could we do that was fun, that supported the giving aspect as well? And we thought that it was fun, that it was something we could enjoy together like a game.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant. And I love this idea about acts of kindness, right? To ripple. And it's funny, I find like the words nice and kindness seem to have gotten a bad rap in today's like win at all costs sort of messaging in the world. So I'd love for you to share what you think are some of the advantages that you see to approaching our negotiations in life and our relationships with kindness.
So, Cindy, thank you for your positive feedback. And I want to say too that I think I've read this before, that simplicity is genius.
Yes.
And, it's not a rocket science idea, but it's simple. But, there's beauty in that it's easy to do.
Absolutely.
But I'd like to say, okay, so the other thing, kindness, I agree with you, has gotten a bad rap, that it's soft. And, really, even in social media and everything, I think people think it's like an overused word. But being kind is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And So I think that's important to recognize that it's something that doesn't always come easily. And kindness in negotiations, I've read about it a little bit, and I'm not an expert. I would
Yeah.
defer to you, Cindy, and your years of expertise in negotiations. But the one thing that I think that kindness and negotiations have in common is that the first step is empathy and trying to understand another
Yeah.
person's perspective. And even with kindness, when I personally am having a difficult moment thinking, "Oh no, don't tell me I have to be kind." You know, like I'm being called to this because sometimes it is hard. But putting yourself in another person's shoes and trying to understand where they're coming from, it makes it a little bit easier to be kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And frankly, I mean, with your permission, I will invite you to rethink when you say, "Oh, I'm not an expert in negotiations." I mean, it's interesting you say that, Beth, because that was one of the things that really prompted me to write The Art of Feminine Negotiation and to be on this mission. Because women in particular, I think, have been taught to believe they're not good negotiators because we define success in negotiation based on that very competitive win-lose model. And in fact, the thing that makes for the most effective negotiators is exactly what you said, bringing empathy to the table, putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, getting curious and wanting to find out what they need, all of which you do. And I think a lot of when they're so-called feminine traits that you probably negotiate every day in hundreds of ways that you don't even think about. The way you bring kindness to the table, negotiating with your kids, the fact that your family came up with this together. So I challenge you that you're not a great negotiator. And for all our listeners out there as well, every relationship that you have, there is constant negotiations going on. And I love what you said, Beth. When you show up with empathy, it is a game changer to get those better outcomes. And I'd love if you could touch on, I know like the Surgeon General says that loneliness is a worldwide epidemic, and that was even pre-COVID. I think COVID, even more people are suffering from loneliness and isolation now. I'd love if you could talk a bit about some of the benefits of your system and your project that can help them negotiate past loneliness.
Well, you know what? That is a great point to touch on. And I just want to mention, please, when I heard about the Surgeon General's release about loneliness and about it being an epidemic, and I think it was this past April he did this, and he was being interviewed by Katie Couric, and I read about what he gave as solutions to loneliness. And the 4 examples he gave sounded to me a lot like practicing kindness.
Yeah.
And specifically, I won't go into depth, but I do have this handy in case this came up. He talked about spend 15 minutes reaching out to somebody you care about. Extend kindness to people around you, like when you're standing in line. Acts of service, find ways to help others. And also when you're with somebody else, really focus on them and don't do other things like be on your devices and things like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, he's teaching us how to be kind.
Yes.
And then, he circles back around by saying that when people do these simple gestures, they reduce loneliness because when you extend yourself to someone else, you feel more connected
Yeah.
to a person, to another human, and then you feel like you have value
Yeah.
because you're making a positive change in the world. And I thought, wow, more power to you.
Yeah.
Sounds great. And the other thing is sometimes what's old is new.
Yes.
And, we've come so far, I think, in terms of technology, but also we've had a lot of problems, with division and
Yes.
it's a great time to revisit, the
Absolutely.
basics,
Yeah.
focus on, and, even having an interview like this is so productive because, hopefully it'll, help us refocus on kindness, but also people that are listening,
Absolutely.
to think about and reflect on how they can practice it in their lives, to help themselves, but also to help other people.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I was so excited about having you on the show, Beth. I think it's a message we don't talk about enough. I had a friend who also teaches the art of negotiation, and she had started calling her programs negotiation for nice people, and people immediately shied away from it because they assumed that was a weakness, that had to be a bad thing. And the opposite is true. I mean, kindness is the strongest, most beautiful gift that we can give. And I love that when you we're answering that question, it's like it works both ways, right? When we do acts of kindness, it is a way to stop loneliness for ourselves because it allows us that connection. And also, sometimes the simplest acts of kindness that we can give can stave off loneliness for other people. A simple smile to somebody, walking through a mall and going, "Oh my gosh, I love that color on you," can make such a profound difference in somebody's life. And it takes so little effort, so little effort. So I'd love if you could dig deeper. What is kind? Like, again, we sort of throw out the term about kindness, and you gave some examples that the Surgeon General listed. And I agree with you. I think they're just simple acts of kindness. What does kindness look like for you, Beth?
So, having the chance to reflect on it a little bit, there are three ways that I break down kindness now. There's kindness in our home, right? Being kind to one another. There's kindness in our community.
Yeah.
When you talk about passing people during, the workday, or or nearby, when you're grocery shopping, kindness in your community. How can you contribute to your local food pantry, or help with the library, or help with the local drive? How can you contribute there? But then also there's kindness in our global community,
Yes.
which I think is another one that we really need to focus on,
Yeah.
and talk to our children about that. We're all connected, and how can we help those people as well? And it's really, on the one hand, you can think of it as, oh my gosh, what can I do? But on the other hand, if we all did a little bit and donated to a cause that we felt good about,
Yeah.
we can have a worldwide impact.
Yeah. I love it. And it's funny, our messaging is so parallel, and yet yours sounds gentler. Mine, as soon as people hear negotiation, they're like, "Oh my gosh." But I mean, my whole shtick, if you will, is exactly what you just said, that when we show up differently in how we interact with others in our daily negotiations, it improves our personal lives, our professional lives, and globally. I mean, the same principles apply. So I love that you're applying that to kindness. And I totally agree with you. Like, for me, it's about getting intentional about who do you want to be? And exactly what you said, Beth, like in our homes, when you're interacting with your kids or your intimate partner, rather than being reactive, choose with intention, but, stop and pause and go, who do I want to be in this moment? And choose kindness, choose empathy, choose curiosity, right? Not choose, surrender your ego. And also, how just asking the simple question, how do I want this person to feel in this interaction? I think if we did that more in life, it would stop so much of the reactivity and triggering that ends up escalating. So I am loving your project. And I was wondering as well, because often, like, I find, and certainly 30 years as a lawyer, and a lot of people ask, "Oh, how do you negotiate with bullies?" And sir, I am a big believer that normally when we deal with bullies, we either shy away or we get reactive back, we push back. But when we can show up as even a more gracious version of ourselves to people in that situation and show kindness and respect and dignity, it triggers a certain reciprocity, and it's a great way to deal with it. So I'd love your thoughts on how we can use kindness to help in negotiating with bullies. What are your thoughts on that?
So this is really interesting. And so I have a friend that I recently spoke to about this. And a lot of October is anti-bullying month, and stop bullying, stop bullying. But the question is, well, what do we want people to do?
Hmm.
And the answer is, we have to practice kindness,
Yes.
right? And that's why, we think our activity is interesting and helpful, because it gives people of all ages a chance to participate and contribute, and show, how they've chosen to be kind in their home, in their community, in their world. And you can talk about how the situation occurred, and how you handled it, and what you found difficult, and what was easy or what was hard. And, we all can learn from that situation, or, how I would have liked to have handled it a little bit better. And it's great, it's a great tool. So what I would say that I've learned about bullying is that we have to model and practice kindness. But
Yes.
in terms of how to, handle a bully, I don't know. I guess there have been all kinds of books written on that, but I think that, to pause and reflect on the empathy note again is, my husband is even saying this again last night, that it's just shocking that you never know what people are going through and what either young kids are dealing with. And I mean, that's not an excuse for your behavior.
Yeah.
Um, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I think that we have to take responsibility as some emotional maturity is if you feel badly, you don't, put that on other
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
part of growing up and being emotionally mature is learning to control your emotions. So,
Yeah.
hopefully some of those bullies will learn that, to control themselves a little bit more and hopefully grow out of it with a little bit of help and
Yeah.
practicing kindness.
Well, and I actually think you're understating even you're too humble, and I think you're understating the power of kindness because I think you hit the nail on the head. When we model kindness, generally and in particular when dealing with bullies, it gives them a different way of showing up. And I found whether it's workplace bullies, again, as a labor advocate for 30 years, or in professional negotiations, or in the schoolyard, and studies have shown this too, when we give the bully in the workplace or in the schoolyard, show them respect and ask them to take somebody under their wing, man, they rise to the task, right? I mean, that modeling that kindness, they then are able to choose a different version of themselves. And it's a beautiful thing to watch that happen. I'm curious, what's one of the most surprising things that you sort of discovered while, researching or even just working through your project? What were some of the things that took you a little by surprise?
Oh my gosh. I would say that it's amazing what you can do if you just, what any person can do, or what, my husband, our children, are what we could do if you just take it one day at a time and do your best. And, you don't really know the outcome, but just take it one day at a time. And, we were working on a common goal and we're just very thankful for, where we've gotten. And so I would just say the surprising thing is just take it one day at a time. And, I didn't say this one, but Oprah said this, but I thought it was good, which was, do your best every day and the tomorrows take care of themselves.
Yes.
And so just doing your best every day, it's true. It's amazing what can happen over time.
Yeah, so beautiful. So tell us a bit more about where people can learn about this, and as a practical matter, so how do they go about signing up for this, and how can they start applying it right away in their lives?
Thank you so much. So please visit christmastreeofkindness.com. And there we have all kinds of news and information. But the most important thing is there's a link there that you can buy the book. It'll take you to amazon.com. And if you're in Canada, it'll redirect you to amazon.ca. And then there's the free printable craft from the website.
Yeah.
And also the download to the app. The app is free this year. So that's also available
Cool.
from the website. So I would say go to christmastreeofkindness.com, and we're really trying to, here's our slogan, even if you don't like it, please tell me you like it. We're trying to make kindness snowball this year.
Yeah, that's so good. That's
But
so
we
good.
need everybody to help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think conversations like this, as you said earlier, Beth, are so important. Like, let's start the dialogue, start the conversation. Let's get rid of the negative associations with kindness and make this something that everyone should aspire to practice on a daily basis. And for some of our listeners out there, Beth, who may be thinking, this feels so woo-woo or almost foreign to me. Give us some example. You've given a couple already, but what are some examples of some simple things that people can do today just to start getting themselves in practice for doing? Like, what are some acts of kindness that you could suggest?
So the other thing I'd like to say, on our Instagram, we're at Christmas Tree of Kindness. We do give suggested acts of kindness, not one a day, we do one a week.
Yeah.
And we're trying to build a tree together as a community. So
Yeah.
join the community. But last week it was contact an elderly person, and that would be either by telephone or in person. And it really doesn't have to be an elderly person. It could be just someone that you think might appreciate a call, that is
Yeah.
going through something. So I would say contact an elderly person, give to one of your favorite charities. That's going to be our act for this week.
Yeah.
Another one is to say thank you. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's a nice thing. Open the door for someone, when you're walking through a doorway. Donate some of your used clothes. So, and also in the app, before you add an ornament, you can look at a list. There's a list of different suggested kind acts, and you can pick any of those.
Yeah.
There are some nice ones there.
Beautiful. It's worth it just to checking this out, guys, just to get the list of kind things that you can do and make it a part of your life. Imagine the impact. Imagine the ripple effect on the world if everybody just started doing a simple act of kindness every day, right? What a different world it would be, because the ripple effect of, that person that you said hi to may have been at a turning point in their life that could have gone very darkly. We hear these stories all the time, and suddenly it gave them hope, a renewed hope for future. And I just love that. And I wanted to circle back to the point you made about the Surgeon General on loneliness, when one of the suggestions he had made is to give your attention to somebody. And I really want to put a pin in that for our listeners, because we are such a to-do, multitasking, task-driven, and especially even with the younger generation at any given time, you're watching TV and you've got your phone going and you've got something else going. Just slow down and have a conversation with somebody where you are giving them their full attention. I love that you said that, Beth, right? Even just in those few moments. And I will say, not just for the kindness project, but in your negotiations, like whether personally, professionally, or, for larger, world conflicts, give your full attention to the person that you are having a potentially difficult conversation with, or a negotiation in your life, and listen. We do not do that well in North America. We are not well trained for that. So listen, not waiting for your turn to speak, but just truly letting the person that you are dealing with feel fully seen and heard and felt. It can make a profound difference in somebody's life. So, and this has been just a fabulous conversation, and I love the concept, and I wish you guys the best of luck. I totally encourage our listeners out there, go check out this project. Make sure that you participate, share the concept with other people in your life. And I normally like to end, Beth, by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? And again, it doesn't have to be anything to do with this concept, just generally one of those aha moments where you see things differently or show up differently.
So, this might be a little offbeat, but Cindy, I noticed, because I was reading about you before our interview, that you were involved with literacy groups,
Yes,
right? And you're a big book person.
I am.
So I thought there was an outside chance you were going to ask me about my favorite book.
Okay, well, go ahead, throw that on there too. That we could never do wrong by getting a good recommendation for a book.
So, yeah, I said this book really impacted me or changed the way I looked at things. It was a game changer for me. And it was the book about Abraham Lincoln called Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. And the thing that's amazing about it is that when Lincoln finally became president and he formed his cabinet, he had his cabinet. They were not all like-minded people. He picked all adversaries. They were all adversarial to him, but they were brilliant in their own right, but they all just didn't agree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, we all want like-minded people. We all have to well, maybe not. It just seems that way sometimes. Yeah. But anyway, there was such beauty and strength in the fact that he welcomed people that thought differently than he did. And he thought that would make his administration stronger. And guess what? It did. So that was a great book. So I love that example. And, that was a big learning experience for me. So I always welcome I think I did it before, but it just validated how important it is to welcome other people's opinions.
I think that is a gorgeous mindset shift. I love that answer. And I love that there's a book out there that we can check out on that. And boy, I hadn't realized that. So thank you for sharing. And wow, was he ahead of his time? Because what you've just described, like Google has done some massive studies recently about that diversity, right? And you're 100% right. We do tend to attract like-minded people. You look in most corporations for generations, it's all the same sort of, white male privileged, attracting more sort of white male privileged or whatever groups. We end up And especially in today's world, you know, with social media, our news feeds feed us more of what we already believe. So it's not a surprise we're getting more and more polarized in our views. So I love that message about diversity in our teams. And certainly the Google study showed that when you have that diversity of opinion based on race, culture, class, different views, you get better, more creativity, better outcomes, more productivity, right? It's a beautiful shift that we have undervalued for too long. And I love that you raised Abraham Lincoln as well. And I think it's a beautiful note to end on, because everybody always assumes that things come easy, but Abraham Lincoln lost, I forget what, it was like 8 elections or something before, and then ends up becoming the president some would consider, you know, one of the most influential presidents in the US history. So reframing how we look at failure, you know, if I had it to do over again with my kids, I would have them sit down every night and say, what did you fail spectacularly at today? And what did you learn from it? Like, take the sting out of the word and let's embrace it. So, well, thank you so much, Beth. Any parting words you have that you wanted to share with us?
So I don't know, this might sound a little brown nosy, but I just want to say, Cindy, I read about you and I read about the law profession. And I also think that you're a little ahead of the game, or a lot ahead of the game, you know, in terms of recognizing the value of kindness in the legal profession. And I do have 2 friends that are lawyers. And, you know, when I first talked to them about kindness in the law, you know, wanting to hear their insights, at first they were totally, you know, taken aback. Like, what are you talking about? Everybody wants a barracuda, right? But then the more we talked about it, and they're such nice people and they're so kind, they realized that, you know, actually they do use kindness in their everyday workings and in their practice. And I think that, you know, reading from the Ontario Bar Association and the American Bar Association, they're all starting to recognize the importance of kindness and mental health. And Cindy, you can just say you've been on that for 30 years already.
Well, thank you for the compliment. And I love that you're having these conversations with your friends in law, because we've still got a long way to go in the profession. I mean, even our language, it's opposing counsel, the other side, everything is about that kind of win-lose. And I don't know if you knew, but it is so ironic that you use the word barracuda, because for me, that was one of the real epiphanies that led me on this path, on this mission. My clients used to call me the barracuda when I first started, and they meant it as a compliment, which speaks volume. And I realized, my God, there's a high cost that comes from that. And ironically, that was not my natural style. As a kid, even in law school, it was all about building rapport and bringing empathy and building trust and coming from a collaborative versus competitive approach. And then, like I think happens to so many people, I started the practice of law, or when people start in the business world and they look around fresh faced out of school and go, nobody's going to take me seriously unless I get tougher. And I think that's where we've got to make that shift. So thank you, Beth, for joining us. Thank you for having this conversation. And thank you so much for the fabulous work you're doing, encouraging kindness in the world. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for your kindness, Cindy.
And for our listeners out there, I am sure you have gotten lots of value from this. And I really hope you take this to heart and spread this message. Certainly share this episode with others. I think in today's climate, there cannot be a more important message for us to be sharing. So give the gift of sharing. Everybody can benefit from this approach in life. And before we sign off today, just want to share a few ways that we can work together. If you happen to be looking to up-level your negotiation skills, whether personally or professionally, or on the global scene, as we've been talking about today, I've got everything from online to group to my signature one-on-one mastermind experiences to help you learn to better leverage your innate power to not only get more of what you want and deserve in life, but to do better for others. And if that sounds interesting, check out our website at artoffemininenegotiation.com and make sure to grab a copy of my book, The Art of Feminine Negotiation, if you haven't done that yet. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.